Guess we can get started. I don't think Art is gonna make it. So, but it's already a few minutes past, so we'll go ahead and get started. Yep, so we'll start the Brownsville Public Utilities Board Regulatory and Policy Committee meeting. Today is May 6, 2024, and it's 5:35 p.m. here in the Annex Building. May 9th. Sorry about that. I think we're ready to start with the agenda. Can we call the meeting to order? Yep, okay. Any public comments? No public comments? All righty, we'll just jump in to items number 1. Presentation and discussion of revisions to the Brownsville Public Utilities Board Personnel Policies and Procedures number 1, Policy Business Ethics and Conduct Statement.
We're there. Good afternoon, Chairman, Board Member. I'll be presenting. My name is Sergio Delgadillo, Compensation and Benefits Manager. I report to the HR Division under the direction of Dr. Emilia Guerra. So item number 1 is our policy number 1, Policy, Business, Ethics, and Conduct Statement. This policy was last revised and approved by the Board on December 8th, 2003. And this is a very important policy to us. It was one of the policies that a few meetings back we presented to you as a tier 1 that we needed to address. And after a couple of cycles and a lot of internal discussion, a lot of research, we're happy to bring you this proposed policy. This policy is going to establish those provisions on which an employee needs to act, and it's going to say who we want to be so that we can build that trust internally and externally with all of our community and customers. Like with all policies that we've been proposing, we are looking even at the name, so that's the first change that we'll be proposing today. The policy, it's named Policy, Business, Ethics, and Conduct Statements. So the first change is to rename it to Business, Ethics, and Conduct. Some of the general changes, as again we've done every other policy that we reviewed, is make sure that is compliant with federal, state, and local law. So that's a review that all our policies are going through. We're also ensuring that the format, the wording, the feel of the document is consistent and that our employees are able to understand it easily. We are making sure that all the sections are clearly delineated so we can follow through the policy and what we're trying to do with this. So with this policy, again, we had only 2 sections in it. It was just a very general statement that included some provisions. And then we had a second section that was titled the same as the policy that included a lot more information. So it's really a complete rewrite of the policy that we're bringing. And again, happy with what we end up producing. So to follow with some of the changes, the first thing we're doing is we're outlining general guiding norms that employee has to follow. So again, not that we're doing I guess philosophy or anything by writing ethical principles, like Hippocrates, but we are establishing these guidelines where if we follow them, most likely we'll be able to follow any other policy that we have and meet those expectations of individual respect that we're also setting within our policy. So those guiding principles, in essence, are saying that we need to make sure that we comply with all the laws, all of our policies, and follow them as employees and as a company as well. Employees are the company. Sure, right. Exemplify the highest standards of conduct and personal integrity, and use good judgment based on the ethical principles as a guideline to respect and acceptable conduct. So that's one of the first sections that we're creating this policy. The second is respect for the individual. So who do we want to be? What is our workplace going to look like? And that's where we're saying that BPU is going to provide a workplace free of discrimination, abusive or harassment. It's going to be a place where we're going to treat each other with dignity and respect, that is going to contribute to the employee success and that is going to be conducive to health, safety, and productivity of our employees. So that's who we want to be. Next, we're doing some general statements, and this section is really important. We're not doing an all-encompassing section. We do have a conflict of interest policy, for example. We have an anti-fraud policy. We do have an anti-harassment policy. But again, this sets some of those general standards of conduct, which are also covered in other policies, but we believe that it was relevant to provide this non-exhaustive list of most relevant examples. Also within these examples, one of the ones that are important to highlight, we brought to this committee before a confidentiality policy. We reviewed it. So within this general provisions, we are bringing language that we had under that policy, whereas we're not going to bring it anymore, that covers, in essence, that confidentiality requirement for our employees. That will be one of the bullets in here. Again, review by our legal counsel, make sure that it provides a clear, that addresses your concerns with that policy by providing, for example, a definition of what is a confidential document, for example, what is included as a confidential document, where it's even reading, any information regarding public power utility competitive matters, personal data, intellectual property rights, ongoing investigations, negotiations, any information that relates to BPUB business that is security sensitive. So again, a little bit more information so that it's easy for employees to understand what is expected to them within this policy and in general. And one of the other changes that we've also included here, that was one of the things that we brought before, has to do with the obligations to repay BPUB. And we're not saying anything more, but as a standard of conduct, you'll have an obligation to repay any financial obligation to BPUB based on policies and laws. So, in general, just setting up that standard and expectations for our employees through this policy. One other thing that we're addressing, of course, is the reporting section. We didn't have one.
Just
Yes.
on that point, I think that's where we had some discussion last time, right?
Yes,
Which
because
was
in our previous.
like termination or up to termination
Yes,
and.
yes, so we're not saying
Yeah.
any of that here. We're just
Correct.
saying, if you have a debt and an obligation, do whatever you need to pay it based on the rules and regulations that are applicable to you. So we
Good.
have agreements. I know there's a policy coming up with payment agreements, so they'll be governed by that policy because that policy is intended to that purpose. Any other, let's say, that they have within payment, overpayment, well, there's laws already in place that say how you need to collect any overpayment of wages, for example. So we're not saying beyond consequence, we're saying we expect you to follow this.
Yeah.
Um,
I have two questions.
Yes.
Sorry. So some of these things I think would be really good to have applied to the board as well. Some clauses, I don't know, and they might exist already. Maybe I just have not read the bylaws well. But like several, for example, even if something reading through it, like refrain from accepting entertainment, gifts, personal favors, blah blah blah. That that could influence or appear to influence business decisions. Does that apply to the board, or could we make it apply to the board?
I don't have a copy of the bylaws with me. I think there is something analogous, is my recollection. There's something analogous either indirectly through the Code of Ethics that the city adopted or in the bylaws. But I can check on that and report back to you.
And if it doesn't exist, maybe it's something that we could, I don't think having it at the city level is enough. I think if we could have it also in-house, that would be good, and it would be, something. I don't know if it would be part of this policy, or you have to make a separate one.
It wouldn't, because our policies cannot rule over the board. It's just for BPUB
Yeah.
employees.
Okay.
So it wouldn't affect the board.
Right,
Okay.
under the charter, the board would be setting that type of standard of conduct.
Okay. And the other question was, so if an employee reports, I don't know, has some sort of complaint to report to HR, what is the process? Just so that I can understand what this policy is
So we
cover?
actually included a reporting process, and I'm assuming you're asking about that reporting, well, not process, that reporting clause in the policy.
I guess, so I'll give you an example that I heard recently. Not about BPUB, but about another organization, in which when an employee had a complaint and they would be called in to report, like have the formal, gathering of information for the complaint, the supervisor would be present for that, even if the person who the complaint was against was the supervisor. So I want to specifically make sure that that's not what's happening here.
I understand. Well, of course, there's many different types of complaints that we can receive. We were
Right.
talking about a complaint from an employee regarding another employee that might touch under any other protected classes. Then HR would look into it, and it's actually my department who would start an investigation. We start by interviewing the employee. We always do it we try to always do it in sets of 2, so that there's another HR employee present. It doesn't always happen. Sometimes it's more exploratory when we start that investigation. Just to understand a little bit more, you'll sometimes have employees saying, I'm being harassed. So what happens? Well, they've been asking me to throw the trash, and I'm only the one. Well, you need to throw the trash. That's your obligation. That's not. And then we looked a little more into why he believes that is. So we start the initial questioning and investigation. If the conduct that they're disclosing touches on other employees, then we start coordinating meetings with the other employees. And we do speak with the supervisor whenever we need to get to the supervisor,
Right.
but we do not confront the employees one with the other. That's not how we act. We try to get the facts based on the different sets of the investigation process that we followed, and then we reach to a determination. Depending on where the complaint comes from, we'll prepare an investigative report and present the determination to the employee making the report, and sometimes a recommendation to the director, depending if it touches on illegal or maybe there isn't a legal issue within the complaint, but there's an area of opportunity where we can improve what we're doing. So we follow those
You
two.
follow best practices.
Yeah, we follow those 2 chains. Now,
Thank
there's
you.
other reports that might touch and go through internal audit, where there's a complaint on another type of conduct that has to do with not following ethical principles, but that will not be conducted by HR.
Okay, thank you.
Sure thing. Another thing that we address here is retaliation. So we did had it under anti-harassment policy, and it was a request of this committee that we had general catch-all kind of clause within our policies, and we did disclose that we're going to make sure that we had it in this policy. So it's here, saying that we're not going to tolerate any type of retaliation for our employees. So it made it to the policy. That was your request, by the way.
Thank you.
That was your request. Other sections has to do with noncompliance, and then we added 2 definitions, fair dealing and retaliation, so that is very, very clear that we're addressing it strongly and firmly. And that would be the end of this item. Any questions?
No?
No.
Thank you for that very detailed review, and also for highlighting, some of the changes that were made based on the feedback that you guys received, and the processing of that feedback, making sure that that's aligned to what you guys want to do. So I don't have any questions.
Do we vote on recommending it?
No, I
Recommending
think
adoption?
at the big board meeting, yeah.
Okay.
Moving on to item number 2, presentation and discussion of revisions to the Brownsville Public Utilities Board personnel policies and procedures. Policy number 21, retirement.
Yes. Again, that is another item that I'll be presenting. However, we did have a mistake on the presentation, so I'm providing you a copy.
Yeah, right. Yep.
And this is the red language. So,
thank you.
the mistake there was very minimal. We didn't indent it to the left for one of the items, and I'll go through it as we go through the policy, so you can see exactly which one is. That is, sorry. or maybe I already gave you the copy, right? So that would be on page 2, at the end of the section, retiree group health insurance and dental, just after numeral D. That last paragraph that says the BPU, or that starts with the BPU reserve the right, that was not indented, so we indented it to the left. That is a change that you'll see. Not a major change, but I wanted to make sure that we prepare
Thank you.
them. We need to admit when we do that. So our last policy was revised by this by the board on December 8, 2003. Establishes the provisions and criteria for retirement and the continuation of health benefits eligibility. Of course, we did the same as we're doing with every policy. We're making sure that it's compliant with our state laws and local laws. There has been changes to TMRS law, so we're making sure that it's still applicable. That's one of the things that we're doing with all the policies. We're, again, working on the formatting, working on the language, making sure that it's clear. Nothing of substance change in this policy. The same requirements for retirement that are in place and have been in place through TMRS are going to continue. It's just the way that we're writing it so that it's better understand. We're now talking about Texas Municipal Retirement System benefits, so exactly what you need so you can retire through them when you get vested. Just more information for our employees to understand their retirement benefit. And then we go to what is retirement eligibility. Again, nothing changes. We're just rewriting it so it's very easy for employees to understand when they are eligible for retirement. Just as a disclosure, with TMRS, after 5 years of employment and reaching the age of 60, our employees are eligible for retirement. Or if they work for 20 years under TMRS, or contributing to TMRS, better said, then they're eligible for retirement. We also rework our retiree group health insurance and dental insurance. So a lot of those sections we reworked so it was really clear. Employees who work with us for a period of continuous time and get to a certain age are eligible for BPUB health benefit that is paid by the employer. And then they also have the option to pay for the dental insurance. So we made sure that that was very clear in how we were rewriting it, because again, there's no change to this benefit, it's already there. So any employee that works 10 years with us and reaches the age of 60 will be eligible for benefits until the age of 65, or that works for 25 years and reaches the age of 55 will be eligible for health benefits, or that works with us for 30 continuous years with no distinction of age. That's how they'll be eligible for those benefits. One of the sections that we did add into this policy that is relevant is retiree reemployment. So we have seen that some of our retirees that leave us are coming back. Some of these employees have their health benefit active, did not reach the age of 65 where that would be removed. So we explained in this policy how that would work. And just for the record, if an employee that is rehired that has that benefit gets suspended and he gets the benefit as an employee. And if the employee continues to be eligible at the time they separate from their second employment or with BPUB, then that benefit is reinstated. So they had it, they got it based on our policies, we suspended it because we're giving them through the way of being employees, and then it's being restated once they separate, if they're still eligible, and which really if they're below the age of 65, which is our cap in our policy. Those would be the revisions that we did to this policy. Again, nothing of substance, but rather making sure that it's very clear and easy for our employees to read and understand. Are there any questions?
No?
Thank you.
So just a clarification, like with this and some of the other one, there might be some small like spacing, it's, indents or something. And if there's something that's a little bit different when it gets to your packet on Monday, that's just having a second pair of eyes doing it. And if there's any material changes, we'll note it on the revisions. But if we add additional language, it's just for clarity. It's the intent is still here.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Good evening. Sorry.
Hello.
Good evening, committee chair and committee member. My name is Jorge Santillan, treasury and accounting manager. This update is on the accounts receivable policy. The current policy, accounts receivable policy, was approved by the board on June 13, 2016. This policy establishes summary guidance on the non-utility service accounts receivable process. There were some minor updates to this policy. It includes the department name update on page 1 and number 2, and also some definitions updates on page 2 and 3. Do you have any questions?
No?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll try to be that quick. Members of the committee, I'm Mehdi Campirano. I'm the customer service manager. So I got a few here for you today. So the first one we have up to bat is the deposit and credit policy. So we didn't bring this one to you at the last committee meeting, but this is a revision for us. So this one was originally adopted in 2019 by the board, but we do have some revisions. The current policy is, and I guess I'll go ahead and go through that. The BPUB deposit and credit policy establishes the standards to comply with the City of Brownsville Code of Ordinances regarding deposits for residential and non-residential customers requesting water, wastewater, or electric services by establishing and implementing credit rules and regulations concerning initial deposit amounts, acceptable forms of deposit for non-residential customers, reduced deposit requirements based on payment method, and refunding deposits. Again, this is the current policy that was adopted in 2019. Try to say that whole policy 10 times fast. So the proposed changes on this one were we updated the policy number to reflect what we're currently numbering them now, just to be in compliance with that. We did add the code of ordinances, the numbers associated with the code of ordinances. That way, if they needed to be looked up or what have you, they're included there. We removed the roles and responsibilities for the management section because those are reflected in our work instruction. So that way, if those are changed in the work instruction, we didn't have to obviously bring the policy back. So they are noted in our work instruction. We updated the program manager to reflect the director of customer and support services. Since we had some org changes there, we just wanted to update that. And also we added the residential deposit and non-residential deposit definitions to the policy because they weren't there in the existing one. So that's those are the proposed changes. Do you have any questions on that one?
Just out of curiosity,
Sure.
Are deposits covered in the ordinance?
Yes. And so the way the ordinances read, and I actually have them, let me grab them for you.
Yeah.
So the way that the definitions read is the deposit for a residential service shall be $50 for water service or any combination of electric, water, or wastewater sanitary services. So that's what the ordinance reads, basically $50 for any combination of services, whether it be one or all three, for residential. For non-residential, it reads, the deposit for non-residential services shall be an amount equal to the charges for an average of 2-month billing period unless the applicant complies with the rules or regulations concerning credit as established by the Public Utilities Board. The minimum deposit for non-residential service shall be $50. And so we don't check customers' credit, anything like that. So that part is, that's not to say that we won't in the future, but the way we currently do it, we don't. So we follow that first part, which is 2 months essentially worth of bills.
Okay.
But I don't understand.
Yes.
This is for new service.
This is for a new service or, say, for instance, an expansion of service if a business is going to be significantly increasing where their deposit would need to be increased. But for the most part, this is for new customers coming in that we require a deposit. Well, we require a deposit of all customers. But specifically for non-residential, it's 2 months' worth of bills. And so you're maybe thinking, well, they're new customers. How do we figure that out? I think that's maybe where you're going with it. And so, a valid question. And so we can either, a lot of these entities that are coming in, we can find either a business that's of the same industry, the same size, or they can provide us utility bills if they were located in another service territory, like a relocating to our, from moving from one state to here. Or we can also go based on the size of the transformers that they have. So there's a calculation that were provided by electrical engineering, depending on the KVAs of the transformer, we can calculate a deposit. So there's different methods, so we try to make it as close to their bills. And then once it's established, once we do get data, and if it does need to be reduced or increased, we can have that conversation with the customer. So it can change as needed.
Do you think then that language should be equal to the charges for an estimated? I mean, because the way it's written, it's like a certainty,
Correct.
not an estimate.
Yeah, it definitely
An
says equal to the charges for an average of 2-month billing period. So it does sound kind of definite. I mean, we can certainly make that recommendation, but of course, it being an ordinance, we would have to, create a
So the
resolution.
ordinance is written just like this?
Yes. I was reading it from the Muni Code. So it's, obviously, it'll actually, a few extra steps there if we wanted to change it, but it can definitely be done.
I mean, it's out of the scope from what we can do
As it
here, but we
stands
can recommend it.
right now, yes, sir.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing we wanted to do was make sure that we're following the ordinance for these revisions.
Okay, and then to request the credit back, is it also through BPUB?
So we, residential customers, and this is not in the ordinance, this is something that we have in our work instruction, for residential customers, if they do have 12 months of billing history where they don't miss a payment, they're not late, good payment history 12 months in a row, we actually refund that $50 back to the customer. Now for non-residential.
Automatically?
I'm sorry?
Automatically?
Automatically, yeah. They'll see a credit on their bill.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we get calls a lot. It's like, I have a credit here. Is this something? It's like, no, you're a great customer and we appreciate that. This is actually us refunding your of course, this is just for residential customers, back to your account. And we do tell them that when they're setting up services, because, we enjoy the customers that pay on time. And so for non-residential, they're not refundable. So, and when they close the account, then obviously it's either refunded or put on the balance, going towards the balance that's owed for the final bill.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
okay, all right,
Yep.
let's move on to payment arrangement policy. So this is one of them that was brought to the committee previously and presented by staff. So out of respect to y'all's time, we can either go through the full presentation or just go over the changes based on the feedback that we did receive.
The changes.
Yeah.
Okay?
Just give me a sec here. I don't know if
Sure.
I have to read. Did we jump to the next one?
Yeah, I jumped to this one here. Then this is these are the proposed changes that we had based on the feedback that we received from the last committee meeting.
And this is for the
Payment arrangements
arrangements, yeah.
specifically,
So,
yes. Apologize.
So yeah, just moving to item number 5, presentation and discussion on the implementation of the BPUB payment arrangement policy. So now,
So again, this is a new policy. This was not an existing policy, like the deposit one. So this is a new one that we brought to you last committee meeting. So the creation of it, which is the policy, is attached. And based on the feedback that we received, let me go here. In front of me. So we updated the policy to include an applicability section And this basically outlines who qualifies and who does not qualify for a payment arrangement. And last presentation, we actually had payment arrangements and installment plans within the same presentation. And based on the feedback we got, we decided and we agreed to kind of split them because they are two separate things. So I don't want to get too far ahead of myself and talk about installments, but you'll see that that's a noticeable difference where they are separate. And that was a recommendation certainly that we agreed with. But on this one, the first recommendation was to clearly outline who qualifies for a payment arrangement, who does not qualify for a payment arrangement. The second revision was under the general provision for residential customers, we changed guideline number 8 to a payment arrangement can be made the following billing cycle after assistance has been exhausted instead of 3 months after assistance has been exhausted. And so we made it a little bit less aggressive. And by assistance, we mean like Project Share, any type of financial assistance program that a customer may qualify for. That's what we're talking about when we talk about assistance. So that was another change there. We included a new exception. And so if a residential account has been on a payment arrangement for a balance that includes charges for more than one billing cycle, prior to the inception of this policy, BPUB will allow 60 days for the account to become current. So basically, we're going to give them a little bit of extra time if they have, because remember, the point of a payment arrangement policy is to help you right now.
Yeah.
Where it's not meant to help you, we don't want you to double or triple up on bills. So this is just to help you get it out of a bit of a difficult spot at the moment. So what we're saying though is if you have a payment arrangement existing right now that does maybe cover multiple billing cycles, we're going to give you 60 days to kind of clear that up. So we don't want to, once the inception of the policy is basically, we still want to continue to help those customers that are in the rears.
Yep. Do you know how many people or how many accounts would qualify for that at the moment?
I don't have those numbers on hand, and it's a moving target since about 3,000
Wow.
that are on payment arrangements or that are on. Okay, so that's total payment arrangements. A lot of them are just
out of 50 or how? Out of
residential
50,000?
customers. We have about 55,000. So 3,000. And so a portion of those are going to be the ones where that actually spans multiple billing periods. Typically, a payment arrangement's only giving an additional 20 days from the bill that's past due now. So it's going to be even a smaller amount that's affected by this. And we just want to help.
Is that normal? 3,000? Just curious.
Payment arrangement to assist customers, it's a form of assistance to customers, so we do offer it, so customer take advantage of that. So it varies, like he said, it's fluid, it's not always the same, but.
But do you track those numbers? I was just curious if
Track them at the next
3,000.
Presentation, but we can track them, so normally we track them based on when they're due,
Mhm.
but we.
Does it get up to 10,000? Is it normally 1,000?
No, I haven't.
Does it go to
seen that.
zero?
It's pretty consistent unless there's a significant change or an event, I should say. Like say, for instance, the moratorium, when we
Yeah.
lifted the
Yeah, yeah.
moratorium, we obviously saw a very significant increase in payment arrangements.
Yeah.
And we were expecting that. We knew that was going to happen, so we prepared for that. So unless there's an event, it stays relatively consistent at about 3,000 a month. So.
Okay.
The second change would be added or their designated representative to the emergency exception. So that way, if a customer designates somebody to speak on their behalf of their account and they can show that to us or let us know, we want to be able to have that representative set up a payment arrangement on their behalf. Yes?
Let me give a correction on the emergency exception, that's where our GM or CEO can designate somebody to make exceptions to the policy as well. Just a correction there.
Sure. If there's a hurricane, if there's whatever, some weather event
Ms.
or.
Gilbert or
Yeah.
whoever, it would be Ms. Gilbert or whoever she assigns as her designated person.
Yep.
My mistake. I think I'm getting into the authorized individuals
Yeah.
section, which is the next one. And so the next one is the definitions, the section of the policy to include authorized individual and senior account. The second thing is we also included the account cycle graph in the presentation, which is actually this one here, which shows the complete life cycle. of when we read from day one all the way to disconnection day. So we did include that.
Was this on the previous? No.
It was not. So we did add this to the presentation based on the feedback that we received.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a moment to adjust it because it's pretty busy.
I tried and I couldn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess the 10 days is the additional time?
So the additional time, so payment arrangements aren't reflected on this.
Okay.
This is a normal billing cycle here. So the first one, which is the 29 to 33 days, that's your consumption period. So that's what you're going to get billed for. So the read day, which is that blue box there, so 3 to 5 days is between the read day and then when we actually create the bill and then get it out.
Yeah.
So once that...
Yeah, I
sorry,
mean,
go ahead.
it's pretty clear. I just didn't know when they would ask for arrangements and
Oh, I
how
gotcha.
many days that would extend it. I think,
So to answer that question directly, they usually ask as it's approaching the past due date, so within that 20 days or slightly on the 20th day after because we give the customers 20 days after they receive the bill
Yeah.
to pay. A payment arrangement gives another 20 days on, after that. So essentially, we're giving them 40 days to pay their bill with a payment arrangement. That's what that
I know
payment
you guys also have robocalls.
Yes, so we send reminder letters as well, but also the reminder calls. It's like, hey,
When do those kick in?
So those kick in. It's after the remainder letter period is so you have the 20 days, and then you have 2 days where the day after there's a late charge, and then within the 10-day period there's a reminder. So it's within, I would say, after like on the 25th day they start getting reminders.
So I'm going to tell you that those robocalls that you're referring to, that's something that we implemented recently. We ran it as a pilot initially, and it's the before disconnect call. So every customer that's scheduled to be disconnected the next day will get a call to let them know and remind them.
Yeah.
And that's after they've already received letter reminder. So it's kind of like the final reminder before you disconnect it tomorrow. I think it's working out pretty well because everybody that is in the list will actually get a reminder call to give them that extra time to make that payment in the
Yeah.
evening that will trigger the disconnect to be canceled in the morning.
Good.
And in the call center, we know when those robocalls come up because we start getting calls in the call center, people wanting to set up payment arrangements. So we know that they're effective. So that's good. Did we answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. So the next one is we included the ordinance to provide on section 102-75, obviously just reflecting the ordinances there that deal with payments, which is date when payment for services is due, penalty for delinquent payments, disconnection for non-payment, and reconnection for disconnection. So those are included in there. We wanted to include the ordinances that were applicable. We did take this to, staff presented this to the PubCaps to see if we could have any feedback or how well received or any type of recommendations. There was no recommendations made, and it was pretty well received, so that was good.
This version or the previous version was taken?
This version.
Yeah, good.
Thank you.
Okay. If that's it, we can move on to the next item.
So one of the things I do want to say, these policies are all for the board items for Monday, and it's up to the committee if we want to put them all in consent or if we want to put them individual, let us know. But right now, we were thinking of them going into consent. If you think they should be discussed, please let us know, and we'll provide this end presentation. I know this one right here is pretty important and maybe a broader audience, so this may be one potentially, but right now, since we're working, finalizing the agenda, this is something I can talk to the board chair and mention to him, can we move this into individual consideration? And we can include on there that about the committee's recommendation. I'll leave it up to you.
Yeah, so,
Consent or individual consideration?
I agree with what you said.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm good with being on the consent.
Consent.
I think that this will provide, enough visibility. I think there was confusion. Last time we didn't have, kind of a timeline. But I don't know if you feel otherwise.
Well, I think the previous items, so 1 through 4, I think could go in consent. this one, let's get through it. So one, my big question about this one and the next one, maybe I should wait until you call the next one, because I'm going to ask a question about the next policy.
Yeah, sure. We can.
Ask away.
Are you also doing the next one?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll open up number 6, item number 6. Is that an issue if we discuss a previous item?
No, there's no problem.
Okay. Presentation and discussion on implementation of the Brownsville PUB installment plan policy.
Why are they separate?
They are two separate things altogether. And so what a payment arrangement does, again, it's just adding an additional 20 days to pay. Now, an installment plan, and let's actually go ahead and get into that. Thank you. Somebody's driving. I appreciate it. Okay, let's go ahead and get into that part. What an installment plan, where is it? Okay, here we go. So this is where an installment plan differs. So an installment plan, instead of giving a customer an additional 20 days to pay on top of their normal bill, these are actually a little bit longer in duration. So they're separate payment, let's call them payment plans, that can extend anywhere from 2 months to, or 1 month really, depending on the customer, but from 2 months to 6 months. And these are in certain instances, like a write-off balance. And usually these are for significantly larger amounts. That's why we give a little bit more flexibility here. But these are for write-off balances, transfer balances, customers that may have experienced a leak, especially an ongoing leak or a significant leak, where the dollar amount is significant, for RF meters and for back billed charges. So really this is a payment plan that we have in place for those balances that are, like I said, significant and out of the customer's control, where we're trying to, get them to obviously pay what they owe, but not make it so burdensome.
Let's say I owe $400.
Okay.
Like I just can't pay it, and then so I come to you and tell you can't pay it, and can you offer me both of these options?
It's one or the other. And so, say for instance, of course, we're going to go with what's more advantageous for you and what you're able to do. So if you say, hey, look, I just need 10 more days, then okay, a payment arrangement actually sounds like it's right for you.
Right.
But if you come and say, look, I can pay you $100, or all I'm able to do is $100 a month for the next 4 months, that's where this would come into play. And so we're able to do that.
So you can offer me both. I mean, not at
the same time, or concurrently, I should say.
But they're available. Both options are available.
Oh yes, both options are available to residential
customer.
customers.
That it's like $400. Okay, so and the decision of which one is on the client.
It's both. So obviously we don't expect our customers to be the subject matter experts. We can do is basically on the information we get, we can certainly make a recommendation as far as which one sounds like it would be a better fit for you, and ultimately it'd be their decision. But 9 times out of 10, it's it's usually mutually agreed upon that this is more advantageous. Depending.
Real quick, I think a payment arrangement will help you. Will give you additional days to pay what you currently owe. An
Right.
installment plan will break it into months, so you're still going to have your regular bill come in.
Yeah.
So it'll be your regular bill plus whatever amount you agreed to pay on an installment plan.
Right.
So if I have a $400 that I need to pay today and I cannot pay that, I wouldn't recommend an installment plan necessarily, because you're going to have $400 next month if your consumption is similar, with $100 extra from that installment plan. So you might just need a little bit more money or more time, that extra 20 days to make that payment and break it down till your next due date. So that's where customer service representatives will help the customer make that decision and what's best for them.
Right, that's a good point. Again, these are say for instance you experience a water leak and your consumption goes up significantly for that month. And obviously that's not something that you're expecting as a customer, to see that bill and that significant increase. So based on that water leak, that's where we can actually not make it as painful and kind of spread that out over time. So again, whatever that's agreed to, you still have that monthly bill. So the next month you're still going to have your bill. The next month you're still going to have that bill, but you're going to have that additional installment payment to help you, again, catch up. Does that make sense?
Yes, and with the, I forget the terminology, but the different RF meters that we're doing for electrical and water, would that help in those cases where people have leaks? Are we able to?
The
to catch
RF, what the
that?
RF meters do is basically if a customer has a locked gate, it's being able to get a read, and so the RF meters, they're not going to help with leak detection or anything like that. Basically, they're just radio frequency meters where our meter readers are able to read it at a relative distance as opposed to entering a backyard. So customers that have locked gates or just don't want us going in there, that they have animals or just privacy
Sure.
concerns or things like that. So that's where we're able to basically read it from
So
a handheld.
in those discussions, we were talking about leaks, but I guess we were talking about system leaks.
Well, how would
Probably meaning that there's 10 homes that each have, a remote meter, and we know how much water we're sending them. If all 10 don't add up to what we're sending, then there's a system leak somewhere that's not going to be caught by the meter itself, the remote reading meter, but we'll be able to know from the system side.
No. So RF is only for electric meters, and so they're only
Okay.
residential only, and they're only I forgot I think it's like for 50 amp service or something like that. So it's for very specific, but only for residential
And
only.
for water, we were doing
And we
something
don't
for
have
water.
RF. So we're going into AMI.
AMI, yeah.
So that's a completely different animal altogether. RF is just being able to read the meter,
Sure.
from a handheld without actually have to
Yeah.
entering
So
the
I was
backyard.
thinking AMI, sorry, yeah. So will AMI help people
Oh, absolutely.
if they have leaks in their home?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
So-
definitively. So
So we have this as a catch. Hopefully in the future, we
Yes.
can still have it.
RFs are
But-
obsolete already,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
they will no longer be needed once AMI is deployed.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. That's what I meant, AMI instead of RF. All right.
So is that distinction clear, the difference between payment arrangements and installment plans? Typically, installment plans, again, for an event that happened, like a water leak or something that happened where your bill increased significantly, or, again, a write-off balance where a customer had a write-off account and then they come back, they resurface a few years later, and we obviously discover
Yeah.
that write-off amount. We're able to plus it into the active account, but where we're able to kind of break those payments up if they're significant. So events like that, where a payment arrangement is just helping you in your current situation, just giving you an additional time to pay that bill.
Yeah.
So,
Why do senior accounts not qualify for a payment arrangement?
because they already get additional time to pay, so they actually already get an additional, I think it's 20 days to 17 days to pay than a non-senior account. So basically, they're already, let's call it a built-in payment arrangement already.
So that's an existing policy?
That is an existing policy, correct? Or it's an existing offering that we have for customers. It's in a work instruction. It's not a policy.
Yeah, maybe something you want to put in a policy.
Right. I'm uncomfortable passing this policy excluding senior accounts if we don't have a policy that, protects the senior accounts.
So we have work instructions that tell us how to assist the senior accounts, but, so like he said, it's already built in. This will give you 20 days, they have already 17 days, and the difference with a senior account, they have 17 days without a late fee.
Without penalty.
So they don't have a penalty. A payment arrangement will give you 20 days, but you're still late, so you're still going to have a late fee. Senior accounts have an extra 17 days without a late fee, and that's just how we managed our senior accounts.
Yeah, I think
So
the
that's the
point is,
difference.
yeah, the point is that even though it's being applied, just food for thought, it may be good to capture that in a policy. That way, you already have it implemented, so you can write it, it's already done, right?
Right, I think
the
that it could be added. I mean, I don't know. I'm not,
Yeah, I mean, you're already doing it, so it's not gonna hurt, it's just gonna be
codified.
codified.
Because it's a type of payment arrangement, right? It could just be a subsection saying, senior accounts get this. that is different, as opposed to just being completely excluded here.
I mean, does that make sense, or what, why, yeah, okay.
And so for the other ones that are excluded from these two, but where's my list? There were senior accounts, commercial accounts. Are they covered in other policies?
So for commercial accounts, they don't qualify for payment arrangements or installment plans. So we don't offer any type of payment assistance for commercial accounts.
So no type of payment assistance at all?
No.
Is that codified anywhere? Probably not.
No. It's, again, in work instruction.
Okay. So what happens now when, let's say I'm a commercial account, and I have a $4,000 bill, and I'm unable to pay it within, I'll look back at your graph.
So it's always been our practice to not extend payment arrangements to a commercial account, so this is not really anything new for them. It's just there's very few that we do. We just want to formalize it in the policy here. So
Yeah.
what we would do is we can have some flexibility for those customers that potentially on one at the moment.
Also,
We-
there are some that are on either installment plans or payment arrangements right now.
In 2020 and right after, I believe it was 2021, 2022, I'm sorry, I will need to verify that it is in my agenda for Monday. We did have a moratorium that allowed customers to not make payments, so that put them in a bad spot, right? Because they accumulated months and months of bills without making any payments.
Oh,
So
wow.
we had a lot of commercial customers with very big bills. And because of that, we temporarily started the process or allowed them to go into payment arrangements because of that, because the moratorium put them in a bad spot. And that's something that was communicated when we discussed the moratorium with the city as well. So it was publicly addressed that we believe that could cause issues for some customers because they were going to carry on. It's taken a while for some customers to come back from that, even after COVID has exhausted. We don't have that many accounts currently. I believe there's a very, very, very few commercial accounts that are currently there.
Very few, like less than 10?
Less than 10.
Yes,
Okay.
single digits.
Single digit. So less than 5 days. I
Okay.
can tell you the amount. I mean, we have currently 3 accounts. I
Okay,
believe
great.
less. No, I believe
It's
less.
it's less.
I believe less, because some of those change, and they vary, right? But they're getting, it was to help them get caught up after the moratorium. It was something unexpected, kind of like in the emergency clause
Right.
on these policies. Our work instructions did state that we normally didn't do it, but it was because of that we did it. So now this policy is kind of setting the rules. Again, if this policy passes on Monday, it would be implemented on Monday unless you tell us to give us additional time. 15 days, we plan to send out a letter to let them exhaust that last payment arrangement, to pay it in full, to give them that extra 20 days to make that payment in full, unless the board recommends otherwise.
I would recommend 15 days. Just give
So,
people
well,
a heads
remember,
up.
the payment arrangement is 20 days, so we can make contact with those customers because we're ready to pick up the phone, make contact over the phone with the customers, and let them know, policy passed yesterday, we can put you on a payment arrangement now that will give you, the last payment arrangement that will give you an additional 20 days to get caught up, and that can assist the customers who also receive a letter. Again, it's up to the board. We're presenting options, right? Because residential customers will have 60 days, commercials will not, and they will no longer be able to get any type of assistance. We would be moving back to pre-COVID. That's kind of how.
Okay, and this is the standard format for utilities?
Right. It's a cost of business, and the ordinance and that general flow chart is really what applies to them. It's a cost of doing business.
So,
Okay.
so if we go back to the chart, right, the risk associated, a residential account, and
It's
the
a lot lower
bill,
risk, right.
It's a lot of risk, and if you can see, from the time that you first start your consumption, from when you actually get disconnected for non-payment, you can actually, it says about 75 days, it can go up a little bit higher. Situation like today, where we have a heat advisory, right? That some disconnects, or we might have staff working on AMI or a special project that might push disconnects a little bit further. So 75 days is the max based on this chart, but depending on our business operations, that might be extended a little bit further. So the risk of having not billing or not disconnected for 90 days after your initial day of consumption is a lot higher on a commercial account. That's why we don't recommend it for commercial, because of the risk associated with that.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Yeah, and I think here, I mean, I would say that it is in the policy because you added it as a definition, right, or as a applicability, you have there, commercial is, does not qualify. So I think that was a point of confusion last time, and now is clearly stated.
Right.
And again, this one was also presented to PubCap, and no changes were recommended.
Yeah, so I think the new policies, maybe we can pull out from consent. And I think with the new information, hopefully it won't be too complicated. Any other questions?
I just have one final one. The write-off accounts, so those are accounts that are not going to be paid, right?
Correct. Those are accounts where no bills were paid and the accounts were just left and the customer owed.
And if a customer wants to pay them with an installment plan, we're not allowing them to do that?
So we can't apply an installment plan to an inactive account. So once it's written off, and so if a customer's coming back and they're opening up services, what we can do with that new account, we would take that
that's
balance.
an instant bill.
I'm sorry?
It's an instant bill.
No, instant bill is when you come in and apply for services. Everybody gets an instant bill. That's your deposit and your service fees. So
Okay.
those are due upon receipt. And again, your $50 deposit that we were talking about, that's going to be on your instant bill. So we don't offer installment plans for those instant bills.
Right.
But you're asking about write-off accounts. Since those are closed or inactive accounts, I can't create an installment plan for a non-active account. So, but if you noticed, we can apply an installment plan for a write-off balance. So that's a customer who's coming in to reapply for services, or they moved locations or something like that, where we did find an old account that they had and they're trying to open up new services. So we will grab that balance and then put it into their new account. So they do have an active account, but we're offering an installment plan on that balance that was left behind from a previous location or previous account.
Okay. And then in the installment plan, just run it through it again. It's how many months?
It's typically anywhere from 2 to 6 months, depending on the customer's
And if they
preference or
don't pay
need.
it, what happens? Disconnection?
Correct, and it would default back to disconnection. Correct.
And then there's no other alternative until they pay everything. right?
You can write it off.
Yeah, it
and
would
then
go. It would.
reapply.
It would. Again, that cycle would repeat itself. Yeah, as far as the write-off.
Okay,
keep
but there's no
accumulating,
other
yeah.
installment plan. You won't.
Correct.
You won't go.
Into perpetuity. Yeah,
Right.
correct. Yeah. We
Okay.
would.
That's it.
Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah,
you.
thank you for that, for all of those details. I think we do have one more. So item number 7, presentation and discussion of revision of the Brownsville Public Utilities Board Safety Hazard Complaint Policy.
Good evening, policy members. Policy committee members. So, let's see, this is, okay, our current policy, the Brownsville PB Board Safety Hazard Complaint Policy, establishes a method for employees to report safety hazards to the Safety and Security Manager for appropriate action by filing a complaint when safety hazards are not resolved through the established lines of authority. This was adopted back in August the 1st of 2017, and due to recent changes in organizational structure, the Safety and Security Operations Department has made revisions to this policy. So these are some of the proposed changes. These are the proposed changes. We changed the document to reflect the new policy format. The policy number was changed as well to reflect the department name from HSF 1110 to SSO 1100. We changed the manager title throughout the document from Health and Safety Manager to Safety and Security Manager. We changed the department name throughout the document as well, from the Health and Safety Department and to the Safety and Security Operations Department. On number 5, we removed the scope section, and this was mainly to clean up the policy, and this was also addressed in the policy statement of the new proposed policy. On number 6, we'll remove the roles and responsibilities section, as this is also in the corresponding procedure document. On number 7, we remove 6.2, maintaining the policy section, because that as well is in the policy, the corresponding policy, procedure document, rather. We removed the words from 4.1, 4.2, 4.4 under section 4.0 definitions, again, because that's no longer in the policy document, but that is on the procedure document. And then we added a subheading, date last reviewed by, and effective date. Again, because we had removed the maintaining policy section, we just wanted to add that on there so that we had a reviewed date. And that is the extent of our proposed changes. Do you have any questions?
Nope.
Yeah, no questions. And I think this item can be also included in consent.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank
Yep,
you.
thank you. I think that's it. So,
Thank you so much. We'll make sure that we put items number 5 and 6 into the individual consideration for discussion for the full board, and the staff will be prepared to provide the presentations for everybody for discussion, and we'll talk to the chair to let him know about the changes to the agendas, which will be finalized shortly.
okay. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.
And happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there and to